Hi guys, Jay here from Just Technics. We've got another pair of beauties to show you. These pair have come into me for a service and to sort a few issues out, including pop-up lamps, drift issues with pitch and audio issues, etc, etc, etc. So took this one apart first. To the untrained eye, this one looks okay, doesn't it? You wouldn't think any different if you were going to buy this unless you really knew your Technics, but it's actually been resprayed. Now, if you look really carefully, you can see the colour difference between the central section here. It feels rough as hell, and it is definitely resprayed. You can tell it a mile off. And if you look at underneath here, the original colour differs from the top of the deck. I took the pitch trim off of this so that you can see this was the original trim on here as well. They simply masked around it and sprayed around with the original trim in place. Graphics are aftermarket, not level, and simply not right. We go over to this one here. This is exactly the same look. Graphics exactly the same style, exactly the same style, exactly the same style. It looks to me as if they've resprayed this one here first, found it was too much hard work, probably didn't secure over the threads. It looks like the threads have all been sprayed over as well. Probably found it hard work getting the screws on. All the screws on this were all incorrect as well, holding on the main board, the fuse board, the spindle, etc. Everything was wrong holding this in. But at least the two boards matched, but they were also not from the same deck. I think they've done that one there first, resprayed it, and then realised how much hard work it was and decided to just masking tape around the edge or loosely spray it on top of a 1200 plinth. Now, my customer didn't know that this was actually resprayed, or either of these were resprayed. He was under the illusion these were Mark IIs, as if anybody else would have been. Unless you're taking the cover off of the platter, you're not going to know. This is why I say it is extremely important that you check this if you're going to buy a pair. Now, I've taken the pitch trim off here just for the video, plus these are being changed anyway, and you can see that obviously underneath is silver, so I'm not lying about any of this. You can quite clearly see that the plinth is from a 1200. To make it even worse, again, same as the other decks, the bases on these, both of these decks, both state that they are Mark IIs, 1210 Mark IIs, which is correct for this one, because this actually was from a Mark II 1210. Because the underneath is an original colour from a 1210 Mark II. So this is definitely from a Technics 1210. This one, on the other hand, I haven't even got to turn this around, you can see it. This is actually from a 1200. So 1200 plinth that's been resprayed to look like a 1210. The pop-up lamps apparently have blown after about 5 hours of use, and I'm not surprised. These are cheap and nasty cables with resistors already in line. They've bent the LED to have it outside the housing. It's lasted about 5 hours, and both of them started to flicker and all of a sudden stopped working. That is that. The reason for lack of torque, one of the reasons why, which I noticed on the other turntable, was the spindle hadn't been touched at all. It was extremely rough, and it was just gunged up with lots of old oil, and it simply just didn't want to turn properly. This one is very similar. It's quite hard work to get this to turn. I'll be rebuilding these from scratch, so we know it's not going to be an issue. But we've got the Frankendecks scenario again, guys. Look, see the colour difference on the boards? The fuse board is older, including the power supply. This is newer. The main board is newer. This has been put on a lot better than the other two that we sort of showed you in the previous video. You can see where they've been wound around. Usually they're meant to be machine wound around on these. No solder, no nothing, but you can quite clearly see that that looks to have either been stripped and popped on, or just very carefully peeled back and taken off and popped back on again. So that has been removed, but you can see the colour difference, and these are meant to match. There is no way around it. They're meant to match, and quite clearly they do not. So this is not from this plinth, or this is not from this plinth. There's no way of telling, absolutely no way at all. But yeah, that's from a newer board. That's a newer turntable Mark II board. That's from a Mark II. So at least we know that we've got a pair of Mark IIs. But as you can see as well, the arm assembly, that's a Mark II arm assembly. Sorry, I keep saying Mark II. That's a 1210 Mark II arm assembly, because it's black. That hasn't been resprayed. That's from a 1210 Mark II. The same can be said for the other deck as well. There we go. He's got all sorts of things on, like aftermarket cables, but again, even the cables, he's got monster connections on these. I'm sure they sound fine. He's got audio issues, and I'm going to inspect this, but judging from the fact that they've got this heat shrink over the top of the connectors that go into here, what I tend to find is people pop these on underneath the connectors, because if I don't put a sleeving or anything over the cables, it tends to move around quite a lot and it keeps it quite firm. So if you've got a thin cable with a larger diameter on the top of the RCA connector, it's going to move around, and it just helps it stay into place. Now I'm going to inspect the cables for continuity and make sure we've got a good connection from top to bottom, because these connectors are actually pretty damn good. They're monster connectors, they're good, and as long as they fit snugly into my test mixer and we've got no issues with this and the cables haven't got any breaks, got good continuity, then we're all good. The grounding cable, again, that looks like it's obviously going to be aftermarket. The ground cable definitely is aftermarket. I don't know if you can see that properly on the camera here, but I might change these over as well. Not particularly impressed with the way it's been done. Very thin on the forks as well. But yeah, so another pair for you to all have a good look at, guys. And like I keep saying all the time with this, be very careful. Be very, very careful. If you're looking to buy a set of these decks, ask them what the background is. If they play dumb and genuinely don't know, ask if you can take the platter off. Ask if they've ever been serviced. Ask if they've been refurbed. There's lots of questions to ask them. There is a check sheet. I've been asked this so many times since I put the video out with Mojax. There is a lot of things I'm putting on this check sheet. It is coming, guys, but I've received calls left, right and centre from lots of different people who are concerned about buying sets of Mark IIs, Mark Vs, etc., all second hand, and I can totally appreciate it, because you do not want to be leaving with a pair like this. I mean, these will be absolutely fine once I've finished with them. They're going to be cleaned. He's not having them wrapped or anything, but they're going to be cleaned. Going to put new trims on them, new shader cloths for underneath, new shader felts for underneath the pitch knobs as well, new obviously tactile switches for the buttons because they don't feel very good at all. It's almost like I've just taken everything out and thrown it back in after having it resprayed. I mean, surely it would have made more sense to have just kept the original colour and kept everything inside it and just gone, it is what it is, you know, it's a genuine unit, but this is where it starts getting interesting because the parts don't match. It's just another pair of Frankendecks. And this is what we've got. If anyone that needs parts, by the way, for these turntables, I've said this multiple times before on my Facebook page on lots of videos, but if anyone needs parts for these turntables, obviously there's plenty of aftermarket parts around now, people have replicated things. You need to go on Facebook, you need to find a company called DJ Spares. Kevin is a lovely guy, so DJ Spares can get hold of anything pretty much from aftermarket Technics parts, even to some of the genuine Technics parts, if he's still got some available if you're lucky. Pioneer parts, Allen and Heath, etc. He's got plenty of parts, so check out DJ Spares for your parts if you're in the UK. If you're outside the UK, you've got two options. First option I'll be going to is Christian over at Technics1200s.com. He is fantastic. He's a lovely guy. Plenty of parts available. And if you're outside the UK, he's definitely the first person to check out, especially if you're in the States. You've also got Frank at Green Vinyl. So type in Green Vinyl on Google. You will find him as well. Three very trustworthy people in the industry. And I'm telling you now, I wouldn't go anywhere else to buy parts. But the state of these guys, it's just, this is the giveaway. Graphics and the paint. Look, and you can quite clearly see that the paint matches. And as I always say, if anybody is going to go and look at a pair of Technics, don't be carried away with the fact and get all excited about their Technics and you're going to buy them and take them home, because the last thing you want to do is take home a pair like this and start spending hundreds of pounds having to do things and replace parts over because things haven't been done correctly. And if you genuinely are looking at a pair and you're a bit concerned and you want a bit of advice, call me. Find me over in emails. Put a comment on the post. You could even email me the links of what you're looking at, if it's on a social media page, if it's on eBay, etc. You can send me over the links. I'm more than happy to look into it for you. I've helped numerous people out since this has happened with this previous video. So just fire us over the links. I'll happily go over them for you. But yeah, I thought I'd show you this pair because they're going to be all nice and cleaned up soon. They're all going to be stripped down. Service works already began on this deck. Obviously the plinth needs to be cleaned, but and cleaned off of all of this. But yeah, any questions, guys, anything at all, fire on the comments below. Don't be downhearted if I don't get back to you straight away. Obviously I do this for a living, so I don't sit on my backside just doing YouTube videos, as you all know. So If anyone does put any comments below, I will get back to you. This won't be straight away. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and the next video hopefully will be out pretty soon for the Pioneer Rev 7. So keep your eyes peeled on the page. Cheers guys.